All right, we're down here at Big Swing Golf Carnegie. I've got Jeff Ogilvie with me here today. Thanks for coming, Jeff.
Yeah, no worries, yeah.
Thanks to everyone for submitting the questions about the Masters and Jeff's experience there at Augusta. I think we'll crack into it, should we?
Sure, let's do it.
At Big Swing Golf, real big fun.
All right, so Jeff, first question we have from Samantha. What is your favourite part about the Masters?
Where do you begin? I mean, it's just getting the invite. It's amazing. I mean, that's a pretty special day when they. I think they do it on digitally now, like on emails and stuff. But we used to get this unbelievably embossed letter, and it's all sort of like really fancy stationery and stuff. And here's your invitation to come play the Masters. Would you like to come? You know, that's an easy yes box to tick. And just the fact that you've been dreaming about it your whole life, and it's a place with such mystique, and no one ever really goes there as a player, almost superstitiously, until you're in the tournament, you know, and you get there the first time and you drive down Magnolia Lane and you get inside the gates and you see all the stuff you've been seeing on TV your whole life, get down to the 12th and you really see what that's like at 13. It's just that just being allowed to go, you know, is kind of the best sort of feeling of the year.
Does anyone say no?
No, I don't think so. Oh, wow. I mean, I think the only people who could play that don't are sometimes guys who have won, like a Nick Faldo or something. He's still allowed to play, but he doesn't play. Or a really bad injury. But even like guys will go there with one arm and try to make it work that week if they can. Yeah, it's a pretty special invite.
Well, I don't disagree. I'd like to go myself. All right, next question we have from Claire. What are the first tee nerves like at Augusta? So you've got the invite, you've trekked over there, assuming that you've come from Australia. You got ready, you're on the first tee. What's it like?
It's pretty full on. The only other place I think is the Old Course that makes me feel like that on the first tee. That's you feel like you're standing in a spot where so many millions of golfers have hit shots from in the Old Course. And Augusta's similar. It's had such a build-up in your head your whole life. And when I first got there before the tournament, and I played a practice round with Adam. This is quite a long time ago. My first time, I was nervous on the first tee just because I just didn't want to do anything wrong, and you just feel so privileged to be inside, and I don't want them to kick me out. Please let me stay here. So, really trying to behave and not take too big a divots and just kind of do the thing. But then the tournament comes around, and you've had such a build-up. As I said, it's a lifelong build-up to the Masters. And you finally get there. And luckily the first tee at the Masters is a relatively easy tee shot. It's not like the narrowest hole on the course, or you can kind of get it away, but you're challenged on the second shot. It's one of the hardest greens on the course, the first, sort of unknown by everyone who doesn't really go there. So the test becomes tough really quick. But that first tee, it's very nice to just hit the ball solidly and get the ball away, because it's a tough one to get the ball on the tee.
So no shanks?
No shanks. It's a wood, thank goodness. Yeah, it's a scary shot, but as I said, it's a relatively easy tee shot. They kind of get the field away a little bit, and that helps. Yeah. But certainly much more nerves than any normal tournament.
Yeah, I bet. All right, next question here is from Trotter. He says, is Augusta traditionally the best conditioned course on the tour each year?
I would say it always looks the best from a little bit of a distance.
Looks great on TV.
It's immaculate. Like, it looks immaculate. Sometimes it's the best, and sometimes when you get up close, they've had a wet winter and the grass is a little bit thin, or the greens always roll perfectly, but again, they can have just a little bit less grass than some other places, just because they're pushing the course to get them fast, and they get crazy weather in that area. Augusta, Atlanta, sort of Georgia area, they can get in April and leading up, they can get snow and they can get 30 degrees Celsius and everything in between. And you can get pollen, so you can get allergy issues, and there's just a really extreme, crazy climate they have to deal with. So sometimes it's not as perfect as maybe it looks on TV, but it is absolutely immaculate. I mean, the thing that strikes you is every blade of grass on the course is basically the same colour. It's colour from wall to wall. Every bit of grass is attended to. Like, it's how they want it, you know. There's no like part of anywhere inside the gates that they don't look after. You know, most courses they look after the fairways and kind of look after the rough, and then it's just there's areas where it's just we don't deal with that over there because no one sees it. Well, Augusta doesn't have any of that.
Yeah, right.
They paint the curbs on the driveway, the gutters they paint them green, and they're painting them green all the way leading up to the week. There's probably 1,000 coats of green paint on all the concrete. And
how many staff must they have there in the lead up?
You know, I think they've got close to 100 staff or so normally, and a normal, let's say Royal Melbourne has 50 or 45 or 50 or something. But I think they have 300 or 400 during the tournament. I think lots of superintendents, I mentioned Royal Melbourne. I know Richard from Royal Melbourne, the super there, has been over there a few times and helped out. I mean, you've got supers at Royal Melbourne raking bunkers for the week and stuff. You know, like they all sort of go over there and learn from Augusta's setup and how they manage it, and they're golf course fans, and they're maintenance fans, right? That's their thing, and that's like the mecca of sort of
it's a big one
looking
for the
after
resume.
grass. Agronomy, yeah.
That's
so you've got these incredibly talented guys like sort of picking up sticks in the trees and stuff that week because they've got help. So I think 300 or 400 during the tournament. So no stone unturned.
Nice. Well, it certainly looks great on TV, so it's well played. Next question here is from Percy. They say, do you think Augusta is a hard course, or do you think it's just the pressure of the Masters which makes it hard? Now, I know you already mentioned the second hole is where it starts to get a bit harder to get off the tee, but what's the rest of the course like?
It's a relatively simple course if you play it very conservatively. If you just try, let's say for a tour player to shoot even par, and that's your only goal and you don't want to shoot any less, it's not that difficult. Just make sure you hit it under the hole, give yourself sort of 30, 40 foot uphill birdie putts, 2-putt them all, stay away from the trouble. It's relatively easy to shoot an even par sort of score for us. But as soon as you start trying to make birdies, that's when you start bringing in the bogeys. When you start trying to make eagles, that's when you bring in the doubles. And you can't win without being aggressive. So it's difficult because of how we have to play it, if that makes sense. So it's really a perfect course like that. If you want to just cruise around and not get in any trouble, you can. It's very wide. There's no rough around the greens. It's relatively simple if you're always underneath the hole around the greens. But as soon as you start trying to make birdies, and the way they set it up in the tournament, where they put the pins and how they have it, you have to be really aggressive. You have to hang it out there and risk making bogeys or doubles if you want to make birdies. So the difficulty is in how aggressive do you want to be, and how well do you want to do this week. And if you really want to do well, you have to risk doing really poorly. And so that's probably why it's got such enduring appeal, the course.
High risk, high reward.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who probably can make the cut and finish 25th every year, but they'll never win the tournament unless they really like hang it out there and take some risks, you know. But then you do that, and you might have a really awful week. But that's kind of the beauty of the course and why it's often suited guys like Tiger and Phil and even Greg, who didn't win it. But that ultra aggression that you kind of see from those style of players, it's the only way you can have a low score is to play like that. But doing that also risks the disasters.
You've got to be playing well in order to shoot a low score then, by the sounds of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. All right, next question here is from Connor. He says, what is the hardest hole at Augusta?
Wow. It's a conditioned thing, probably conditioning. But the highlights are 4 from the back tee is like a 3-iron or even a hybrid for some people, par 3. I mean, maybe Dustin's hitting a 4-iron. But it's 235, 240 yards to a green that really is about an 8-iron par 3 green, you know. 5 is very difficult. I know I haven't played it since they moved the tee back on Berkman's Road, but 5 is an incredibly tough hole. And the pin, I mean, the pin, some of the pins they can have on 5, it blows you away about how small an area and how severe it is that you're hitting a 5-iron onto the top of a Volkswagen buggy. And if you don't, you've got a really difficult up and down, you know. 5's tough. 10 is incredibly difficult. You've got a really long second shot often, unless you really hit a good tee shot from a downslope ball above your feet to a very small target, where if you miss, you'll probably make bogey. You know, 10's tough.
Does all of this mean that you're practicing before the round in a certain way that would be different to any other practice round?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why you really need to play a lot of rounds there, because you start working out the shots that are really important. And the spin is all about you got to putt really well and all that, and that's true, but that's true anywhere. And the putting is more extreme there, but after 4 or 5 or 6 days at Augusta, if you sort of ever played sort of big breaking fast greens before, like sort of guys who grew up in Melbourne have, you can kind of get a handle on that. But you're hitting off some pretty extreme side slopes and down slopes and up slopes, which is not normal, because quite regularly on tour you just generally, the ball might have slopes but it'll roll down onto the flat and your 4-iron's off the flat, whereas at Augusta it's on a down slope with the ball above your feet. And you've got that all day, so you do a bit more of that sort of practice, sort of side slopes, down slopes, and you got to shape the ball. There's a lot of holes that if the ball's moving the right shape off the tee and into the green, it makes it play quite easy, but if it's going counter to that, it makes it really difficult. So and the end of that is 11 is probably all said and done the hardest hole on the course because there's no bailout on the second shot. Quite a wide fairway, but 500 yards, so drive a 3, 4, 5 iron for most of us, and then a green that if you try to miss it out where Larry Mize chipped it in from, it's an almost impossible up and down. But to hit it on the green, you're risking hitting it in the water. So it's another one of those questions that Augusta asks you. It's like, if you want to win, you have to risk hitting this in the water, you know. So after that, the course gets pretty doable on the back nine, as everybody knows. 12 is actually relatively easy unless it gets windy and the situation. You know, 12 on Thursday off the front tee to the left pin with no wind is just a wedge and it's not a difficult shot. But 12 on Sunday with a wind that does actually go around in circles there, it's actually kind of weird. To the back right pin with all the history, and if you lead in the tournament, I mean, it'd be probably the hardest shot in the world. So 12 is situational.
Yeah.
13, 14, 15, 16, they're all birdies on Sunday especially. And you get away, but you got to get through 10, 11 first.
Sounds like you've got a photographic memory of each hole. I know you've played it a fair few times, but must really hold a special place to remember every hole.
Well, I think most people just fall in love with the tournament even before they've gone, and then you go, it enhances that even more. It's the sort of course that you have to pay attention, I think. It's a course you want to you love paying attention to it. You love caring about it because it's such a cool place, and you learn something new every time. I was fortunate, I played a lot of rounds. I always went early as well, and played 2 or 3 rounds a week before the tournament or something, and quite often you'd get there and Dustin's there, or Freddie Couples is there, or Bernard Langer's there playing with his friend, or Adam's there, or there's always guys there, and like every time you play with someone else, everybody knows something about the Masters that maybe they've hit a shot that no one else has had. And every time around, it's the sort of course where everyone's saying, I was over here in 2007 and it went like this, come try this shot, or come try that shot. And everybody does, and you don't do that in a normal tournament at the Buick Open, you know, but everyone does it at the Masters. So I think it creates an encyclopedic knowledge of sort of the golf course, because you really want to know all the tricks and secrets.
Does that mean that, you know, the week before the Masters, do they just clear the booking sheet for you pros to go in there and practice as much as you like?
No, members are playing up till the Sunday.
Yeah, okay.
But I think it's limited. I mean, the membership at Augusta is mostly from out of town these days, and they're not. I don't think there's any rules about limited play, but they all understand that the Masters is the real thing, and there's less play, I think, than normal in the week or two leading up to it. But they all sort of come in town, and most of the members who all have green jackets, they're all a lot of the volunteers.
Oh yeah.
Not the sort of crowd control volunteers, but they're running the transportation, or they're running the range, or they're running the caddy thing, or they're helping out with tickets or something. So the members all sort of get recruited to work for the tournament.
Yeah.
So they're all sort of in town helping with that. But yeah, there's often members out there all the way up to the Sunday. And the Sunday before the Masters starts, generally there's not too many members playing, but there's often a few. Phil Mickelson, say, will come out with his dad and play, and they'll play with a couple of members that they've become friends with over the years and stuff like that. You'll see, So it's not closed, but it's probably quieter than normal. There's probably a quiet course any day.
Must be a pretty eclectic place, you know, the week or even the week before the Masters, the town itself. It must, like, you know, as a pro, you're probably trying to hide away from the hordes of people, but for the likes of someone visiting for the first time, it must be a pretty special and lively place.
Oh, it's incredible. It's not much of a town. It's quite a big town.
Okay.
Outside of the Masters, it's I think two of the biggest. I think is it Easygo and Club Car. I think two of the biggest kart manufacturers are based there. There's a big paper mill. There's some big industry there. It's a reasonable sized town with a decent sized airport. But it's a relatively sleepy town, really.
Right.
But then the Masters comes into town, leading up. It is. I wouldn't know what the population goes up, but it would go up a lot, because there's a lot of people in town who don't even have Masters tickets, who are sort of trying to economically capitalise on everybody being there, right?
Yeah.
And it's a melting pot of the world. I mean, there's people from every country in the world walking up and down their main street, and traffic is outrageous. And John Daly parks his truck up from Magnolia Lane and sits out there in his bus and signs autographs and has beers with people. And, there's all sorts of stuff like that going on everywhere. So it's, when you're playing the tournament, we try to stay in an area we don't have to drive through that. We put our head down. Augusta, the tournament's really nice to us. They don't like plaster Masters all over our cars and stuff. They're kind of subdued looking cars. And we go back to our houses and we don't go to restaurants and we hide because we're trying to play the tournament. But if you're visiting the tournament, watching it, it would be an incredibly cool week, because you'd meet people from everywhere in the bars and the restaurants, and every house is rented out to someone coming to stay, and everyone's having parties, and like, yeah, it's a great week in that town. Yeah.
I bet. All right, next question here is from Jeff. He says, what's been your favourite playing group in a round at the Masters?
Well, my favourite round was probably, I played with Freddie in the last round, the year that Schwartzel won. Whatever that was. Can't remember. 11 maybe?
It skips my memory, sorry,
Okay,
Jeff.
anyway, so there was quite a lot of people with a chance, and Tiger went out the group in front of us, and I was playing with Freddie, and Freddie was obviously like Augusta's favourite son to everybody really. I mean, they just love it. Freddie, no one dislikes Freddie anyway. So the crowd goes nuts for Freddie. Tiger was the group in front, and he shot 30 on the front 9, eagled 8, and the place was going ballistic, and he got in the lead after 8. But that was when Schwartzel chipped in on the first, and then I think you hold out again on the third. And lots of people had a chance, and there was birdies everywhere. But the Raws all started early, and then coming down the back 9 with Freddie, I had a bunch of birdies on the back. We both stiffed it on 16. Like, hit it up the thing, and it dribbled down, and both of them were like, oh, are they going in sort of shots? And the people didn't sit down from when Freddie and I hit our tee shots until we got to the 17th tee. Like, it was nuts. It would have been a good cheer if it was me, but because Freddie was there, like, and we both stiffed it, it was great. And I was tied for the lead at the time, and like Freddie was playing well, and it was just a special day. And I played there a few times with Freddie, first 2 rounds, and he's probably my favourite guy to play with there, just because of how happy everyone is to see him. So they're happy to see you, kinda.
Yeah. Crowd favourite.
Yeah, and I played well, and everyone played well, and Adam nearly won that one, and then Schwartzel birdied the last 4 holes to kind of spoil it for everyone, and that was really a pretty fun day. But I think anyone I've played there, the old time, anyone I played with Ian Woosnam there, I played with Langer there, played with Phil around there, Ernie, but really the guys who have won the tournament, whenever you're out there with a guy who's got a green jacket, they carry something with them, and they draw a respect from the crowd that's unlike anywhere else. And it's just nice to be out there with an Ian Woosnam or a Bernard Langer or a Fred Couples. It's pretty cool.
All right, well, I've got another question about 2011 shortly, so don't go too far down there. The next one is from Desiree, and she says, is the Masters the hardest tournament you have ever played in? Now, it sounds to me like the answer is going to be around, it depends on conditioning.
Yeah, I think I'd argue at first, yes, the first time you play it. I think the more you play it, it becomes easier and easier.
Okay.
Because for whatever reason, if you fall in love with the course and you get a chance to play it a lot and you're playing well, it actually gives a good player playing well more opportunities to separate from the field. Whereas like a regular tour event, quite often, if you're driving it well and putting it well, sort of, you can get away with a lot of stuff and still be scoring well. You know, and actually have to have every part of your game maxed out. The Masters, you really have to have everything working, and it gives you a chance to separate. So it gives you the feeling that it's actually an easier tournament to play well in when you're playing really well, because a lot of people fall away. But saying that, mentally, the first time you get there, and you have moments in that tournament that are harder than anywhere else. You have scarier shots that I was saying before, you have to take on. Like, you don't want to hit a 3-on onto the 15th green. You don't. Because again, it's like trying to hit a 3-on on top of a car with water short and water over the back. But you have to if you want to have a good week. So it creates these sort of, you've got to fight the apprehension and fight your instinct to lay it up. And the only way you hit it on the green is to fully commit and, oh well, this might go in the water, but I've got to do it anyway.
It's a bit of gambling there. You know, if you're leading the round, leading the Masters, and you know that other players are going to go for it, you almost have to do it too.
You have to. That's the thing. And so you have to hit a shot that you can only hit well if you're fully committed and you're not worried about the bad. If you start worrying about the bad things, that's when you do hit it in the water. So it's a shot you have to hit. You don't want to hit, but you have to hit it. So you have to convince those sort of decisions and moments and swings are more difficult there than anywhere else. But in general, the US Open is a much harder test from start to finish. You get beaten over the head. It's like the hardest hole you've ever played 72 times in a row. You feel like every time you miss a shot, you're going to make bogey or double. Like there's an element of that it's a bit more. It's like banging your head against the wall and just hoping yours is hurt least at the end of the week. The Masters has rest spots and easy holes in the middle, and like everyone has a few birdies and eagles, and like good stuff happen in amongst all the other carnage. So you get breaks. So in that sense, it's not the hardest tournament. But as I said, the moments that brings up that are difficult, like 12 on a tough day, there's no shot like that anywhere in the world. You know? So it has toughest moments, but overall, it's not the toughest.
Okay. Good answer. Now, because of COVID, we had the Masters in late last year, and we're going to have it again early this year. And because of that, there was no crowds last year, and DeChambeau lost a golf ball. Now, on that, have you ever lost a golf ball at the Masters?
I don't think so. It seems hard to lose. I think you could lose one left of 11 or 13, really. I think are the only two shots I could see myself losing one. Otherwise, it's relative. It's a park with trees growing out of pine needles that you can always find the ball, or grass. So there's not that many places you can lose it. There's no out of bounds in play anywhere. You don't even know aware of out of bounds ever, really. So I don't believe I have.
Okay.
I've certainly hit some balls in the water, but
if anyone can remember a time when Jeff's lost a ball there, please write in, and we'll make sure we'll bring it up next time. All right.
Where did he lose it?
I can't remember. It was just on the first cut. The first.
Oh, it was
first
really
cut
wet.
rough.
It could have gone underwater. It could have just gone underground. Yeah. It can get if it rains a lot there, which as I said, it can. It could snow or be desert conditions. It could be anything. It can get very wet. It can get sort of muddy underneath if it's rained 6 inches in the last month. So you could lose a ball underground.
That must have been the case.
Yeah.
Additionally, there was no crowd there, so there wasn't thousands of people lining the fairways to say exactly where it went.
Incredibly unlucky. I don't know if many people would have ever lost balls there, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next question is from Mika, and he says, "What is more iconic, Augusta or the St Andrews Golf Course in Scotland?"
Well, I think if anyone who's been to the Old Course and sort of driven up into the town and stood on the first tee at the Old Course, you can't trump that in golf. It's the beginning of it all, kind of thing. It gives me the goosebumps just thinking about that place. When standing there, it's just a special place, and it's just got a feeling of. It's more of an everyman's centre of golf, because everyone has the opportunity to go there, and millions of people have been through and stood in that spot and played golf all the way from the Shepherds all the way to now, right? Augusta is a kind of privileged, special place, which is an incredible place, but it's not quite as everyman's, But in modern days, it's certainly sort of the icon of elite golf and elite golf courses. It's like the pinnacle. It's like the Rolls Royce. It's the best of the best. And I think there's probably room for two icons. But if you push me into a corner, I'd say the Old Course every time. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Next one is from Mr. Tandy, and he says, actually, I'll take a step back. Maybe a decade ago, or maybe more, Pat Rafter was once asked, would you swap one of your US Open titles for an Olympic gold medal? And he said, I'd have a good think about it. It wasn't a yes or no, but he said he'd have a good think about it. So Mr. Tandy's question is, would you swap your US Open title for a Masters title?
Interesting. I don't know, because I've come to like the US Open title, and really there's a sense of satisfaction out of the US Open that you've somehow survived, as I said, the impossible test. There's something about that. But saying that, the candy, so I would put the wins equally when you win it. The guy who leaves the Masters and the guy who leaves the US Open, they are equally happy that day and happy with themselves for a long time. But the candy that comes with the Masters win, you can go back there forever. You can take a guest on the Sunday before the tournament. You're kind of like an honorary member there forever, and you have the dinner and you get the champions locker room, and you get more goodies with a win at the Masters.
All right, Jeff, we've got a couple of questions left. Let's go down to a question from Mark. He says, if you had your time again at the Masters, and specifically the 2011 Masters, would you do anything differently? That was the year where we had Scotty, Jason Day, and yourself all fighting for that leaderboard. Would you have done anything differently?
I don't know. I played really well that week, and I remember I had a chance. I was tied for lead on the 17th tee, which sounds really cool on Sunday, which is a cool spot to be standing. But then Scotty had a couple of birdies and he went 2 in front of me, and I finished 8 under or something. He finished 10 under, and then Schwartzel birdied the last 4 holes and got to 12. So in the end I lost by 4, but it felt like I was closer on the 17th tee. So I had a real chance. Played with Freddie on Sunday, and that was an exciting day. I wouldn't change much from what I did, but I putted poorly early in the week. I had a 4 putt and a couple of 3 putts, or remember 2 or 3 really memorable sword fights around the hole, which sort of had me start Sunday too far back. And I was playing really well, and I'd been practicing sort of really well leading up to that, and sort of building up to having a good week. And I played great, except for 2 or 3 little sword fights around the hole. So I don't know what you'd do about that. I was practicing my putting a lot before it, maybe too much, a little bit, you know what I mean, sort of putting too much pressure on it. So maybe that's why, because I never had 3 and 4 putts like that, sword fights. But I don't know. But in general, I would change my earlier career in the Masters. It took me a while to work out how aggressive you need to be to actually do well. If you're conservative, it's quite simple to have a decent week, but you're never going to win and have those great scores unless you're really aggressive. I think I played a little bit scared and not aggressive enough early. In the period I was playing my sort of best, I probably wasn't quite going as hard at it as I could. Not hard at the ball, but as aggressive and making sort of taking more risks. I think early days I would do that, and maybe I would have had a few better tournaments and had more of a chance. But 11, I just would have made more putts on Thursday and Friday.
Fair enough. All right. Now, I think the last question here is from Bashir. He says, who's your pick for the Masters this year?
Well, it's got to be DJ, I think. All things considered, any day, he's the best golfer in the world, and it also, that place suits him the best.
Yeah.
Not only from a physical perspective, but mentally, he's so unflappable, and he's always calm and the same, and doesn't seem to get overawed by situations. So if he comes and he's playing well, he's going to be really hard to beat.
Yeah.
Honorary mentions too, I would say, sort of Justin Thomas, who's been playing great.
Yeah.
Really good for the big tournaments too, he seems, and he's got the great game for that place. Jordan's just won here in Texas. He's played great all year. That guy's probably played better at the Masters than anyone in the last 5 or 6 years. He was in the last group on Sunday, his first 3 trips to the Masters, which is outrageous, right? Because it's a place that takes him learning, and he learned it straight away. And he has the thing for it. It's been a while there for a major for him, but he has the Augusta pedigree, and I think JT and Dustin have the kind of the golf pedigree at the moment, really. So DJ by a nose.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So we're filming on Easter Monday here in Melbourne at Big Swing Golf Carnegie. We can hear some people hitting behind us, so we might have to get out of here. But thanks a lot, Jeff, for coming down, and thanks to everyone for submitting the questions. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Jeff, you're going to be watching the Masters?
Absolutely, yeah. I don't watch much golf anymore, but I never miss the Masters.
Neither do I. All right, cheers, guys. Thanks, Jeff.
Cheers, mate. Awesome.
Bye.